Leading bravely and leading bravely in challenging times is needed now more than ever. But I think the big question is how. We know that for leaders at any level, understanding how to embody and demonstrate brave, compassionate, inclusive leadership is all the talk. So I'm so pleased and excited to have our very first guest on the Bravery in the Boardroom podcast today, Emma Challans-Rasool. Emma is an experienced NHS Executive Director. She's also the founder and chair of the Proud to Be Ops Network. And she really is Bravery in the Boardroom in action and will share so much about the how. Emma, it's fantastic to have you here. Welcome to Bravery in the Boardroom. It'll be great to kick off with you telling us a little bit about you and your current role.
Okay, so first of all, may I say it's a privilege to be here as one of your first podcasts, Monique. So thank you for inviting me.
You're most welcome.
So you want to hear a little bit about me?
Yes.
Okay, so where do I start? I guess what I'd like to do is just say who I am rather than what my title is, if that's all right.
It is. I'll pick you up on that though and ask you that after.
Of course. Right? So mine, obviously, Emma Challans-Rasool. I'm live in Yorkshire and I'm a Yorkshire-born girl. Brought up in a very caring and loving family. And I've worked across health and care for over 20 years now. So quite a considerable amount of time. I'm a football fan, so I'm very active into sports as well. But I regard family very, very highly and working with people. So that's just a little bit about me before I put a title to who I am.
Yes.
So day to day and in my day job and passion, I'm the founder and chair of Proud to Be Ops, which is a national network for operational managers and leaders across provider health and care organisations.
It's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah, a very long mouthful. And I've worked in health and care, like I said, for over 20 years now. And I guess it started by getting hooked working in a community health trust many, many years ago. And I fell into the NHS at that point. And within 6 months, I was absolutely hooked. I worked for a learning disability services and we used worked together as a team to improve care for patients, for families and carers. And the difference that we made to people's lives and improving those pathways just absolutely ignited me, I would say. And from that day onwards, I've always wanted to work in health and care and improve health and care as much as possible. So yeah, that's what I love, and I've gone throughout my career in very different organisations, sectors. I've worked public, private, but always coming back to people, improving services and working together as a team. That's what I do really regard highly.
Okay, I'm going to come back and ask you some questions and dig into that a little bit more because I know there's lots on that journey that we'd want to tease out. And I giggled when you said about being into sports because we should share with our listeners that we are massive Liverpool fans.
We are.
And talk about the football a lot in our WhatsApp chat.
We do. So yes, we are massive Liverpool fans. Yes, from being about 11 years old actually for myself. So,
at the time of recording this, we feel a bit better.
Yes.
We've had a couple of wins, right?
Yeah, so it's all good.
So just to come back to your leadership style, because I want to ask you a bit about that. I know I admire it very much, and the reason why you're our very first guest is because I really want people to be able to hear more from what you value in leadership, what you embody, and what you're helping others to do as well. And I think, I don't want to spoil the whole story yet, but I think it's really important that although people are extremely busy in health and care, actually hearing from live current executive senior leaders who are leading in the way that we talk about so much is vital. It's all good to hear from people who, I was in that role 15 years ago and now I'm telling my story. Actually, I think there's real power in hearing from yourself where you've been in the, at the coalface very recently and you're now in the system. So before I jump into that, can you tell us a little bit about the role that you hold now?
Of course, yeah. So I'm currently the Director of Organisational Development, Culture and Talent across Nottingham and Nottinghamshire integrated health and care system. So another very long title, but basically what does that mean? That means that I lead across the health and care system, supporting cultural development, developing people around leadership and management development, supporting talent within our local system. But it's also about how we can use methods of improvement and the way that we improve through cultural change, in using improvement science to actually make a difference to people who live in the community. And that covers areas around inclusivity, diversity, but importantly, and particularly at this moment in time, is the health and well-being of colleagues.
Yes.
So there's quite a lot in that, and I do recognise that, but they are all the things that I truly do believe in, that if we invest, we pay attention to and take care of, we can do great things for people. So that's what I do at the moment.
So taking that into consideration, and I know me and you, we both like to keep it simple.
Yes.
How would you, so if I asked you the question, how you would describe your leadership, how would you describe your leadership style in 3 words for us?
3 words. I did think about this one, and it was hard to get to 3 words, but I have got 3, and that is fun, deliberate, and optimistic.
Okay.
So those are my 3: fun, optimistic, and deliberate. And I'm quite happy to elaborate on them if we needed.
I'd love to. Actually, absolutely. Picking up on deliberate.
Deliberate.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
So I always believe that, and I always try my best to make sure that whatever we do, whether it's a change, whether it's creating a vision, being clear of the benefits, we are deliberate. So we're making a conscious decision about why we should do something, how we do it, and what that entails. So, because if not, we're all very busy. And actually, let's do things that add value rather than don't add value. So most things that I do, I always think about, is it deliberate? Why are we doing it? What added value is it going to give to people, to patients, to the people we work with, to the people we're trying to support? So, and I often say being deliberately developmental.
Yes.
And that's something, again, that I always hold myself to account on, but also respectfully challenge others. Because I think that way we're really living our vision and we're delivering our vision. So, yeah, that's what I mean by deliberate.
Thank you. And just connecting to that. So, as everyone knows, the title of this is Bravery in the Boardroom. And I know in my intro, I say that Emma is bravery in the boardroom in action for definite. So just connecting that up a bit to say that now the role that you're holding, director role, board member in the ICB, where you are, and you told us about your starting off, your first role in health in the learning disabilities team, and how that sparked your passion to work in health and care and improvement. Tell us a little bit about the bit in the middle. So tell me a bit about your journey and in particular, what helped you to get from where you started to the role you're holding now?
It's a great question, and it's something that I do think is important, that you do stop and reflect of where you were and the journey you had to get to me where I am now. And I do say it's a journey because I am here with you at a point in time. My journey's still going. So when I do think about the journey, I would say it has been quite challenging. And some of the reasons for that is, I would say, 1, being a woman, 2, progressing in my career and being perceived to be too young to be in senior positions, and 3, challenging because of the leadership behaviours that I've experienced. And those are the 3 that struck me the most about overcoming those challenges, I would say, over the last number of years, but recognising what made a difference to that. And that was by having supportive, inspiring role models and managers. It was about actually connecting to a network to motivate me, to encourage me, to support my own well-being, I think, on that journey as well. And I think those are important factors. So I would say that it's been quite up and down.
Mm-hmm.
It's been challenging personally, but it's also been liberating, energising and exciting. And I would certainly say that I have had to be brave numerous times. And some of that is by reflecting on what it was I was feeling, experiencing, and being able to articulate that back in a way where it was respectfully curious, needing to know to help me move forward. So I've had some great opportunities, like I said, and I've experienced some different experiences working in health and care.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing I would say is working in public and private has been a positive experience for me, because it's made me realise what it's like on different spectrums, different environments, climates, and I think that strengthened me as a leader, and particularly in terms of the decisions that I've taken on that journey.
And was it deliberate for you to step out and experience the private sector? Was that an intentional move by you?
It was, yeah. And one thing I would say throughout my career, because I've worked in community, acute, independent, regional roles, national roles. I've worked across Europe in private healthcare consultancy roles. But I've been very deliberate in choosing the different sectors and roles I've gone into, because I wanted to become, and I said become because I still think I'm learning, a leader who understands all the different parts of the whole system.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that I think I can do that is by walking in their shoes and being in those roles. I went into private because I wanted to understand how private healthcare worked, ticked, think, lead.
Yes.
I did the same about working in healthcare consultancy, going to different countries, because I wanted to learn what's it like, what's the healthcare services and delivery like here, what's it like in community care, how can I really join up a pathway and help improve pathways if I don't understand each part of the pathway. So I have deliberately chosen to work in different sectors and roles, and I've been fortunate enough, well actually it's probably not fortunate, I've been forceful enough and brave enough to step out and maybe go for those roles. And I haven't always got them, you know, and I'm a person who does take that knock on the chin, and I need to pick myself up. But when I do look back, I have picked myself up, no matter how hard it's been, and still gone for what I believe in.
So a lot of drive there as well.
A lot of drive and an ambition, and I think that's probably why I am a very optimistic person. Extremely optimistic.
Can I go back and dig in then? So when you just said there about when you weren't always successful in your opportunities, you know, picking yourself back up, but you also mentioned about the challenges you faced.
Yes,
you faced so far, because as you said, you're still on your journey.
Absolutely.
But can I pick up on when you were speaking about having supportive managers and your network? Just can you tell me a little bit more about that? Was that something that you sought out for yourself, or was that brought to you? Because I asked that, and I want to dig in there because I know a lot of our listeners are trying to progress their career or leadership journey and want to understand what helps and what worked for people who get to the boardroom.
Absolutely. And I've experienced some great line managers and some great leaders. I've also experienced some very poor and behaviours-wise, and that has been challenging. The reason why I connect it back to networks is because I'm a sort of person where I would class myself as having numerous mentors in different backgrounds, experiences, styles, not just in a professional context. And that's helped me a lot and massively, because when I have had to talk things through with someone who can be independent, who I feel safe to have a conversation with, I trust, I respect, and I actively listen, then that's helped me enormously. And I would recommend to anyone, who are your mentors and for what? Why are they your mentor? What do you need a mentor for? it's not just technical expertise,
Yes.
and it's actually because you can have a conversation where you're feeling vulnerable, fragile, something's happened and you don't know how to deal with it. So, and I've deliberately gone and seek lots of different mentors, and I've learned that you need it more when you get, no matter what level you work in, you know, whether I started off as in NHS terms, a band 4, which is a project officer and PA, you know, and worked my way up. And I've had mentors all along the way at different levels for different things. And oh boy, have I used them.
Yeah.
You know, whether you get opportunities to work in like learning sets, learning sets is a great opportunity. And do, you know, really create safe, trusted colleagues who you can have conversations with. I still meet with some of my learning sets now, and we get together, and I value their feedback and having a conversation.
So important what you just shared there, and what you said about leaders at any level.
Yeah.
The power of your network, the power of having a trusted, safe space or colleague that you can really confide in. Really heard what you said there about being able to be vulnerable. You know, when you're carrying responsibility, we know that sometimes for people, they feel that as a leader, I can't show vulnerability or I've got to have this all worked out. And I don't believe that's the case. I think it's absolutely okay to say, I don't know as a leader. I always follow that up with, but say when you will know, or go and find the person who does know. Yeah. So in that moment, it's absolutely fine to say, I don't know, rather than trying to cover it or lie, you know. But that vulnerability of saying that vulnerability of when you've got something wrong, or like when you said, when you've gone for something and it's failed, knowing you've got a space you can go to, and as you described, sort of just dust yourself down and pick yourself back up again. So important.
It's extremely important. And like I said, no matter what level, you know, some will look and go, oh, you're a director, what do you need? And believe me, imposter syndrome, vulnerabilities, they're there just as much as when you're working at this level.
For sure.
As opposed to any other time in my career. So yeah, it's invaluable. And I really think hard about that, because that will help you in how you respond to things, the decisions you make, why you make them, and, you know, how courageous and brave you feel confident to be or not be. And I think knowing that you've got that supportive network around you will make a big difference.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you for sharing so honestly as well. I think it's really important to do that.
Yeah.
So coming back to you and your passion, because I know you have an absolute passion for change and transformation.
Yes, I do.
You mentioned improvement before, but what ignited that for you?
I think what ignited it was when I first did step into health and care and seeing the difference that we could make to people's lives. That really, really struck me. And knowing that if we can do one change that will make an experience better for a patient, a carer, a family member, or a colleague, or a person who's delivering the service, that's worth its weight in gold. And actually, it doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be big. It can be small. But that small thing can make a difference. And I think that's what really struck me. I think the other bit is, you know, we've shared... big football fans. I played football from the age of 11 aside, women's league football. And when I look back on that, the team spirit, we were always looking to improve. We always wanted to win the league, be in the top, so we trained. We got better. We worked as a team. We got to understand each other. We got to optimise each other's skills and positions, and I didn't realise it until I do look back that I think I got a lot from that. And it got me into a rhythm of continuous learning and improvement. And I think it's really stuck with me. Maybe it was always naturally there and I never really, and I was just putting it to good use and football was away.
Yeah.
But actually, I think I've always had that kind of thinking and style.
Yes.
And I think I've probably realised it more as I've gone throughout my career, and then I've optimised it. And I think now I just keep wanting to grow it grow my understanding, my experience and development, but it's always within that continuous learning and improvement, whether it's for patients, customers, people. That's what I'm kind of about.
I really hear that connection in what you're saying about learning what ignited you. You know, you learn early in your career. You clocked that early in your career, what worked for you, what ignited you, what you felt a connection to. And then, to use your language, optimizing it in terms of the decisions and roles that you went for to broaden your experience.
Yeah.
I can really hear that. And I think just thinking about that and I'm asking, not telling actually, just thinking about that from a perspective of, so when it is challenging, you're in a senior role, but you're doing what you love and you're doing what you're great at. And I really hear a connection to that. If I can link that onto, then let's talk about the Proud to Be Ops network.
Yeah, okay.
That's the big thing. So tell us a little bit more about it. I know loads about it and I absolutely love it, but it'd be great for you to explain what's the network, who does it serve, what's its values, and what you're focusing on at the moment.
Okay. There's a lot in there, Monique.
I'll break it up. I'll break it up.
So, Proud to Be Ops. So it does what it says on the tin. So it's a network of operational managers and leaders across health and care provider organisations who are proud to be in operational roles. Proud to be ops. I myself have worked in senior operational roles for quite a number of years in different sectors. And when I was a deputy chief operating officer, I reached out to say, where are my peers? Who can I connect with? Who can I learn with? Who can I steal with pride from? And I quickly found that nothing existed. So I set about, well, let's create something. Let's start a bit of a movement. And it was back in 2017. And I got 15 people together in a room. And we all said, why are we here? What's our purpose? And I particularly took a developmental approach to meeting as 15 colleagues from one end of the country to the other to say, why are we here? Why should we come together as a professional network? What do we all want to get out of it? What are our values? And what are the principles that we work to? And like I said, that was back in 2017. 15 people. We're now well over 1,000 members from one end of the country to the other. And we're still only tip of the iceberg with that. But really what we came together for was to recognise operational professions as a profession. We know that roles such as finance, HR, nursing, medical, they're all seen as a profession in their own right. Operational managers are not. And so there was something that we determined around raising the profile of ops, who and what we are and why do we do the role that we do. There was also around recognition. You know, a lot of people in operational management roles felt unloved, undervalued, not recognised, not celebrated as a profession. And that was quite powerful. And there was also around people feeling quite lonely in these roles. You know, you've got operational senior managers who are leading massive divisions of clinical services with budgets of 20, 30, 50 million pounds. It's a lot of people that work in there, but they weren't really recognised, and their own development and their own safe, supportive space didn't exist. So we started Proud to Be Ops, operational network, and then year on year we've grown. And the network involves managers from community trust, mental health, acute, independent, non-for-profit, and ambulance sector. And we continue to grow, and now we have a very supportive, safe space that's all about the people and the people within it. We're not a meeting. We don't go away with actions. It's a very deliberately developmental space where people come to connect, to learn, to develop and share, and to support each other.
Tell me a little bit about, so I know I asked you loaded questions in one, didn't I? So tell me a bit about the values of the network.
So the values of the network is about creating safety. So safety to have a voice, safety to feel vulnerable, safety to feel respectfully challenged. And therefore it's about trusting the people who you are connecting with. And everyone holding dearly a set of values, which is around trust, respect, safety, support, and creating spaces where people can learn and develop. And we hold each other to account on those values. And every session that we open, we remind ourselves of our values, of who we are, why we are, and what we expect of each other. And for an example is none of our sessions are recorded because we want to create a safe, supportive space where if someone's doing really, really well, they can be proud about it. If someone's struggling, they can equally share that at the same time. So there's something that we do hold dearly, and it's also why the network is for purely operational managers and leaders from health and care providers. It's not, and it's across 2 tiers, so at a director of ops, deputy coup level, but also at a divisional general manager level. The reasons for that? Well, you don't want your boss in the room when you're trying to have a conversation that you might be challenging. You might need to share things that you might feel vulnerable about. So the network really works hard, and I personally work hard of creating that and maintaining a safe, supportive space.
Thank you for explaining that. It's so true. It's so true about people feeling that it's safe. I know I've attended some of your network events. I've been part of them, and there really is that opportunity to be honest about where you are. No question is a silly question. And I think genuinely members want to support each other as well. You know, so they want to hear your challenges, so that actually that you almost have that action learning set approach in action, isn't it? To be able to support each other, good, bad, indifferent with what's going on, but also challenge thinking.
That's exactly it. I mean, one thing that the network has grown in over the last 2 years is that we're influencing upwards. So we work now closely with national bodies, organisations and teams to bring the ops voice to the table, but then for it to be heard, and then for something to happen as a result, as opposed to just, I'm at the table. You need to go beyond just being at the table. And that's something, and what the network members express and share is that it's not Emma saying it, or it's not, John saying it, it's Proud to Be Ops saying it. So it's a representative voice, which again creates that safety. And safety and security to speak up and have a voice.
And that is something that when we have our bravery in the boardroom sessions and events, it comes up a lot. You know, we hold webinars where we regularly have panel guests of current execs and non-executives working across the NHS and care space, and I think it comes up a lot. The question comes up from the audience all the time about, I want to speak up, but I haven't got your title. You know, I'm not sitting in the boardroom. I haven't got a director title. How do I speak up? And how do I speak up without fear of repercussion? Because it's true, you know, there may be leaders like you who will absolutely encourage your teams, regardless of level. Come and speak to me, you know, want to hear your views. We'll have other leaders who feel threatened when someone speaks up or tries to shut them up, or they become a target. And that's the truth. And I think hearing here that if you are in a situation where it isn't a safe environment to speak up, to know that you can come into the network and the network can support you to have a voice still, I think is important for people to hear that, because some environments it's just not possible to speak up and be safe at the moment. And that's, you know, we shouldn't hide from that.
I agree. And I think having that network and like your community, you know, people like you, but where you feel safe, and actually you can have that voice and you can share that vulnerability, but equally you can get advice, guidance, support to where do I go next with it. And I think that's an important aspect of the network, and it providing that opportunity.
So one of the other things I know you do in the network, and I wanted to just pick up on, is your approach to co-design. So I know in terms of what the network prioritizes, what you're focusing on, there's a lot of discussion with the members. So it'd be really good to hear a little bit more about how the network supports leadership and talent development.
Yeah, sure. So like I said, the network is an independent network. So nobody owns us as a network. And I think that, again, is super important for us as a professional body.
And why is that?
The why is that is because it's the members, therefore, that choose what do we do through the network and why are we doing it. What development do you need? Not what someone else is telling you need, or nationally they're telling you what you should do, but what do you actually need? What's going to help you be a better leader, a better person, and to add skills to do your day job. So the independence is important because then it's an independent voice, and it's coming with the best intent. And there's a reasoning behind it.
It's not political.
Correct. It's not politically driven. It is you're getting lived experience, boots on the ground. This is what Ops is telling us. In terms of leadership and talent development, so that is one of our key 5 objectives as a network. Is about leadership and management development, recognising and nurturing and growing talent. So, for example, we look at opportunities. What is it? Learn from members. What is it that you need? It's not often, here's a programme, go on it. We know there's loads of things out there, but actually they often are not quite the right thing. But you have to shoehorn a person into it because that's the programme. We purposely and deliberately co-develop programs based on what do you need, what's going to help you, okay, what might that look like, okay, how we might do that, when do we need to do it, what would it involve, and that's the co-development piece. And we've done that across numerous programs that we've offered to members, whether they are over a period of time, whether they're module based. A good example is only this week we're going to be launching our mentoring program for members, and that's what members want. And that's about first phase between yourselves. Over 1,000 members in here. You've all got expertise. A new manager might have stepped to work in emergency care, never done it before. That's okay. You've got a member over here who's done it for the last 3 years. Why don't you learn from each other?
Love that.
So it's the fact that actually optimise your own skills and expertise and offer that mentorship as a network. We've equally, with yourselves, Monique, you've been involved and engaged in members of the network. We co-developed a Brave Leadership in Challenging Times programme based on what members wanted and needed. So, that's a very bespoke programme. It's not an off-the-shelf. It's based on what members need. And so it's things like that we look to take forward. But the other side of it is one of our other objectives is about being a diverse and inclusive network. Talent is a key element of that because we recognise that as a network that actually we need to grow our future operational managers and leaders. So how do we recognise talent? Are we reaching out to the people who are talent rather than the normal route? So we're doing that in an effective way. How do we know where the talent is? So there's something about, first of all, our own cultural intelligence as a network of how diverse and inclusive we are. Because that then allows us to really think more about, well, where's the talent then? And are we getting into the areas and encouraging and the language we use to recognise and nurture future operational talent? So we also are on this immersive learning as a network. What influence can we add to aspiring operational managers and leaders whilst also holding the mirror up to ourselves around how inclusive and culturally intelligent are we as a network? And so they are 2 the leadership and management development and being a diverse and inclusive network of our objectives over the next 3 years.
I think it's so important that when we talk about, you know, our strapline, we want to see boardrooms more representative of the communities and staff they serve. And what you were just saying about, you know, a large component of staff in the NHS and in health and care are operational staff, right?
Yes.
So if you can improve the diversity in who's coming up and who feels part of it and who feels that actually believes that they've got equal opportunity. Because I think there's really something here about, we can have all the talent programs in the world, but actually if we've still got colleagues who feel or perceive that they don't deserve these roles or they will never get there or the barriers and blockers will stop them, we've got an issue. If, like you touched on something, the language we're using is excluding, you know, large groups of talent, what happens there? It's really important that this isn't just about for developing talent as well, but also you're working. So I know some of the work that you're doing in network as well for the managers and leaders who have responsibility now, so that they are looking at themselves. What can I do more to lead inclusively? What do I need to stop doing? What do I need to start doing more of? And really being able to see that. So I think it's really good to hear that the network's called itself out on it and then gone, so what are we doing in practice to change that? I haven't seen you rushing to make a great statement about it out there. No. It's actually getting on with it. What are we doing for our leaders? What are we doing to look at talent differently? How do we go ahead and implement this now and learn from it?
I think that's it. And you know, you don't have to shout about it because it's something about actually let's hold the mirror up ourselves first. And whatever, and again, I do come back to this being deliberate. So let's be deliberate about, you know, why we're doing it, how we're going to do it and what we're going to do. Yeah. And it is a classic why, how, what, but it's true. Yeah. And I think otherwise we're not being authentic ourselves and we're not being true to who and what we are. Yeah. And I think, you know, one thing that we have committed to is, again, over the next 12, 18 months, we recognise as a network, I said we're at that director of ops, that divisional general managers, so quite senior. But actually, we've got managers who are our future directors of ops. So actually now we're going to be looking at, okay, so what do we offer to those managers? What can we do as a network that's going to give them now a safe, supportive space to develop, learn, connect and share? And importantly, feel energised, because these roles are becoming more and more harder to recruit into and to retain good people. And some of that is because of the continued projection of NHS managers as an example, and manager bashing and saying that, you know, I think some of the language is around, you know, bloated at the top and fat cats and that kind of thing. And actually, it's not representative of what ops managers are. Yeah. And that's, again, is what we're about as a network, being brave and speaking up and sharing those voices. And also recognising. So I think there's something here, isn't it, about, we were talking before we started recording about when it is challenging. It's more challenging than ever, isn't it? And, you know, we're out of a pandemic officially, but actually a lot of what's gone on in the pandemic in healthcare, the pressure and the volume of work hasn't changed. So we haven't used the word today, resilience, and I'm glad we haven't, because it feels like resilience, we expect people to be resilient forever. I love the term that you taught me instead about emotional fitness. Yes. And helping, that really, for me, brings it into how are you feeling right now? Yeah. How are you feeling in your ability to be able to lead and do your role right now? How are you connecting to how your people are feeling and where they're at, you know? And I bring that up now because I know a lot of people may be listening and thinking, the load on my plate is just too heavy, you know, or I don't have the title that you have. So I hear all what you're saying, but I don't have the title to go ahead and do some of this. I don't feel that confident right now to go and jump in and start a movement like you have. But I really heard what you said before about small changes making a difference. And it would just be great to hear, what would you say? What would you say to my listener who is saying, I don't feel I've got the authority, the title, or the time? What would you say to them? I would say to them, first of all, think think about what your needs are. What is it that's going to help you move forward, whether that's in your career or whether it is just about your own emotional fitness? And then think about the different ways that you can connect with that. Is it through other people? Is it through doing something different? Is it about stepping outside of your work environment and thinking, well, I can meet some of that by doing X, because that's where I get my energy from. It's where I get my motivation from. So you've got to think about the balance of the work and home, because often the two are interchangeable. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
So I think you have got to think about that. A title, don't get me wrong, I have privileges because of my title. I do recognise that. However, I never used to have the title. And there are ways, whether it's through connecting with different people, whether it's about being clear of what your needs are and therefore finding the environments and space where you might get some of that, whether it's about sometimes you've got to be kind to yourself and say it's okay if you feel a bit rubbish. Actually work through that, try and understand what that bit rubbish, why, what is it? So I think you've got to do your own internal, but also with networks and people, relate it back and share back what you think you're feeling, hearing or experiencing. And, allies are really influential. Who are your allies? Because, and I think the other bit is, it can take time. You can't all of a sudden become brave overnight. You can't all of a sudden think, oh, I've sorted it. Accept the fact that it's a journey. And that what I would say is that everyone goes through challenges. There is always the other side. There is always the other side. And it is about being patient. It is about trusting yourself. It is about connecting with others. Don't go into isolation. Really keep connecting and learning and growing from others, and actually being kind to yourself to do that. Those would be some of the things that I would recommend.
Thank you, Emma. I think really practical but sensitive advice that you've shared there. And I think we've heard from you sharing your story and journey today, how that's really helped you and moved you forward in your career and journey. So 2 things to finish up on. One is, obviously, we heard about the Proud to Be Ops movement, which, if we rewind the conversation, started with 15 people in a room. So when you say about starting small, 15 people in a room to over 1,000 members today. If people want to hear more about the network or learn more about it, where can they go?
So if anyone is a Twitterer or a tweeter, as they say, we're on Twitter, which is @ProudToBeOps, which is spelt proud, the number 2, the letter B and ops, OPS. And we're also on LinkedIn. So again, if you look for Proud to Be Ops on LinkedIn, you can find us there as well. So that's the best way to connect with us and learn a bit more.
Okay, and my final question to you, as we were talking about emotional fitness and we've been hearing about you, so could you tell us a little bit about what you do to maintain or top up your emotional fitness?
So I find the places that motivate me and energise me. And I know those places are 1, family and friends. 2 is being in creative, innovative, optimistic environments. Really, that is the space where I thrive, absolutely thrive. And 3 is fitness.
Okay.
I like to keep fit. I like to burn off what little energy I might have left some days. But I like a space to keep healthy and fit. And I think that helps me keep the energy levels that I do. Family, friends, creative, innovative spaces, and keeping healthy and fit.
Oh, Emma, it's been such a pleasure talking to you today. Even though I know you well, I've still learnt so much from our conversation. So thank you so much for being our first podcast guest.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me, Monique.
You're welcome.